Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
In our top story, the Prime Minister of Albania was in Israel for a 3-day official state visit. The Balkan state recently severed ties with Iran after it was repeatedly threatened and then sustained cyber attacks that temporarily shut down its government services and websites. Prime Minister Edi Rama was joined by Albania's cyber director, as well as the country's foreign minister, the agriculture minister, the national security advisor, and the chief spokesperson. They held high-level meetings with their Israeli counterparts where they pledged cooperation with the Jewish state in the areas of cybersecurity, tourism, and trade. Interim Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid said that Iran represents a joint threat for Israel and Albania and offered Jerusalem's assistance in combating the Islamic Republic. Albania joined NATO in 2009 and is a member of the UN Security Council. It has become an increasingly outspoken ally of the Jewish state. The Albanian ambassador took a bold stand by walking out of a recent meeting on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly when the Organization of Islamic Cooperation proposed a resolution condemning Israel.
Interim Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid sent his congratulations to newly elected Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Just hours after she was sworn in, Lapid tweeted his congratulations in Italian, saying that he looks forward to working with Meloni to strengthen the ties between Jerusalem and Rome in the international arena and in the fight against anti-Semitism in Europe and the Middle East. Lapid also sent his well wishes to Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani for assuming his new position. The Israeli premier declared that Tajani is a staunch and longtime friend of the Jewish state. Emmanuel Nachshon, the spokesman for Israel's foreign ministry, congratulated the people of Italy on the election and said that Israel looks forward to continued cooperation and friendship with the government, particularly in the areas of economy, energy, water, innovation, and cyber, as well as in the joint fight against anti-Semitism and preserving the memory of the Holocaust.
The United Nations Commission of Inquiry has issued yet another one-sided anti-Israel report. The 28-page document falsely accuses Israel of occupying Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the Golan Heights. It was presented to the General Assembly, and the authors requested that the International Criminal Court prosecutor investigate the Jewish state. It also demanded that UN member states individually detain and prosecute Israeli officials. There was no mention of Palestinian terrorism, and the words Hamas and rockets do not appear anywhere in the document. Jerusalem harshly rejected the report and said that it damages the UN's credibility as well as its human rights mechanisms. Interim Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid said that the report was written by outspoken anti-Semites who submitted a biased, false, inciting, and blatantly unbalanced narrative.
Argentina's foreign ministry called on Qatar to detain the vice president of Iran. Mohsen Rezaei is wanted by Interpol and the Argentinian state prosecutor's office for his role in the 1994 bombing of a Jewish center in Buenos Aires. Rezaei is a former commander of the Revolutionary Guard Corps. He's a top advisor to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and currently serves as the Iranian vice president for economic affairs. Argentinian officials have evidence that Rezaei played a key role in the attack on the Argentine-Israelite Mutual Association, which was carried out by Iranian-funded Hezbollah terrorists. That bombing killed 85 people and wounded 300. In an official letter to Doha, Argentine federal judge Daniel Rafkas said that Rezaei's active participation in the bombing has been proven, and he demanded that Rezaei be arrested while visiting Qatar.
The Israel Shipyards has unveiled its latest generation of the SAR S-80 Corvette-class warship. This vessel is equipped with increased weapons capacity, a state-of-the-art control system, advanced surface-to-air capabilities, combat mechanisms, and a wide range of electronic warfare systems. The 80-meter-long ship can reach a top speed of 28 knots and has a range of 3,500 nautical miles. Eitan Zucker, the CEO of Israel Shipyard, said that the boat is designed for stealth, agility, and ruling the seas with cutting-edge capabilities required in future combat scenarios. Israel Shipyards plans to make the new S-80 its flagship vessel for the next decade for Israeli and foreign navies.
A carving of the name of an infamous Swiss knight has been discovered at King David's tomb in Jerusalem. An inscription bearing the name of Adrian von Bubenberg was uncovered by the Israel Antiquities Authority while conducting a survey of ancient graffiti at the site. They are employing the use of multispectral photography to enhance etchings that have faded over time and become indistinguishable. So far, they have revealed more than 40 inscriptions in several languages, along with medieval family crest. Von Bubenberg was a Knight of the Holy Sepulchre who became a Swiss national hero. Both he and his son were known to have visited the Holy City. Eli Esquisito, the director of the Israel Antiquities Authority, praised the discovery, saying the research carried out in Jerusalem embraces religions and cultures worldwide. He said believers, pilgrims, and visitors seeking to make contact with sanctified Jerusalem left traces that the IAA researchers reveal and record on a daily basis.
A new Israeli startup company is using magnetic fields to provide accurate indoor navigation technology. The developers of Orient.me discovered that every indoor location has a unique magnetic field, so they created the app that uses geomagnetics to accurately pinpoint indoor locations. Orient has partnered with Maps People, Google's official partner for indoor maps, and it has signed a partnership with Google, which is uploading the company's location services to the Google Cloud Marketplace. This will allow customers to locate products in large stores by working in tandem with the store's application, creating a streamlined and navigated journey based on the customer's shopping list. Or Shin, the chief business officer at Orient, said that this technology can be applied to hospitals, airports, universities, and large campuses. Orient.me can help visitors and employees navigate offices, labs, and large building complexes.
Turning now to sports news, and two female Afghani cyclists have joined the Israeli World Tour women's team. Fariba Hashimi and her sister Yulduz fled Afghanistan just days before the Taliban took over the country last year. The fundamental Islamic group instituted oppressive laws and banned women's sports, including cycling. The athletes contracted to ride for the Israeli team one day after Fariba won the national championship in Switzerland. Sylvan Adams, owner of the Women's World Tour Team Israel, said that recruiting the women is part of our commitment to helping young cyclists from all over the world, from developing nations to war zones. In other sports news, Shakira Austin, the American women's basketball sensation, has joined an Israeli team. Austin is an Olympic gold medalist and is listed as one of the top 20 WNBA players. She signed to play for Israel's national championship team, Elitzur Ramla, which has competed in European Basketball League. Austin said she comes from a Christian family, and she's excited to be in Israel and to pray in the Holy Land.
The Israel Allies Foundation held a gala awards dinner to honor former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper for his support of the Jewish state. The event was hosted by the IAF and the Canada Christian College and was sponsored by Canadian Jewish and Christian leaders. More than 600 people attended the celebration in Whitby, including Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Gilad Erdan, and members of the Canadian Parliament. Erdan thanked Stephen Harper for being a steadfast friend of Israel and the Jewish people. He also thanked the Israel Allies Foundation for empowering leaders around the globe to stand up for the truth through its important faith-based diplomacy initiatives. He said that it is his pleasure to participate in honoring Stephen Harper, along with some of Israel's staunchest defenders, to send a strong message that Israel's bond with its Christian allies is everlasting. Stephen Harper was deeply honored to be recognized by the Israel Allies Foundation. He said that he is proud to use his voice in support of the state of Israel while addressing and forcefully denouncing the ongoing and very worrisome rise of anti-Semitism.
Jewish community leaders gathered at the Center for Jewish History in Manhattan to recognize April 29th as End Jew Hatred Day and to honor lawmakers for their support of the movement. Several New York legislators were presented with certificates of appreciation for their total commitment to upholding the civil rights of the Jewish people. This show of solidarity comes at a critical time for the Jews of America, and in New York in particular. The city has suffered a 325% surge in violence against Jews. This grassroots movement calls to end the persecution of Jews in our lifetime. Brooke Goldstein, executive director of the Lawfare Project and co-founder of the End Jew Hatred movement, said this is a vocal call to action for the country to unite behind our cause and to stand in solidarity with the Jewish community. She stressed that together we can blaze forward towards the promise of a bright future that can only be achieved by fighting racism and bigotry today. We are living in mysterious yet miraculous times. We've witnessed the most remarkable fulfillment of biblical prophecy, the Jewish people's return to Israel, and the prosperity and contributions of this tiny country in such a short time. Yet we've also seen an unexpected rise in anti-Semitism, which takes the form of anti-Zionism and alliances between groups that are fighting against the most fundamental biblical values. In the book Titus, Trump, and the Triumph of Israel, Josh Reinstein answers important questions to clarify what has driven political action from the time that the Roman Emperor Titus destroyed Jerusalem until today, when President Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Get your copy today and learn how faith-based diplomacy has changed the world. To order your advance copy, go to triumphofisrael.com.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Alex Traiman. He's the CEO of JNS. Alex, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Josh.
Alex, tell our viewers a little bit about what is JNS.
You know that Israel's been dealing with media bias and mainstream media sources, New York Times, Al Jazeera, CNN. We could go on and on talking about that. Today, even a lot of Jewish media sources have joined in the progressive swing of media, and most of the media in Israel, even in English, is coming out representing a left-wing view. And unfortunately, it's not representative of the views of most Israelis. Most Israelis have a center-right position, and I would venture that most people supporting Israel from around the world come from a more politically conservative point of view. And JNS seeks to represent that point of view with fact-based reporting, high-quality news and analysis.
And so how does it work? You write an article, where does it get picked up? Is it on your website, or do other publications get to use it as well?
Sure. Well, we are a destination website. We have close to 1 million people a month coming to our site, and we send news via email every day to almost 100,000 subscribers. But in addition to that, we're picked up by over 50 publications, including most Jewish newspapers in the United States and around the world, several Christian publications, and several others.
You know, I've noticed this about Jewish publications. They tend to be less and less pro-Israel. Isn't that self-defeating?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was this movement which started almost in the 90s with the signing of Oslo, where a lot of Jewish organizations, Jewish media said, you can support Israel and you can also criticize Israel at the same time, right? And that kind of progressed over the years to the best way to support Israel is actually to criticize Israel, to I have to save Israel from itself, to I don't really like Israel that much, to I don't think Israel fits into my progressive viewpoint. So no, it actually harms the state of Israel tremendously. I think that a lot of these media organizations are harming Israel's diplomatic image, and they're ruining the relationship between Israelis and Americans.
Yeah, but the vast majority of Jewish Americans and Jewish community abroad are very fiercely pro-Israel, I would say. So why aren't they doing something about stopping this bias in their own publications?
Well, they can decide, what type of news they want to consume, and that's why JNS has emerged as a viable alternative to a lot of the other outlets.
People are understanding that our best friends around the world are not even the Jewish population, or in addition to the Jewish population, are actually the Christian population. Christians understand the importance of Israel, understanding with Israel like never before. Are you doing anything to cater to the Christian audience?
Well, absolutely, and multiple Christian publications actually take our news and republish it in their magazines and websites because they recognize that it's a better source, and we're not skewing with a progressive viewpoint that doesn't really serve the interests of the state of Israel or of their readers.
One of the issues that is always in the news, especially when it comes to Israel, is Iran. the idea of a nuclear Iran, the idea that the countries around the world are capitulating to a nuclear Iran. How important is that in your reporting?
Oh, it's one of the key beats that we deal with on a daily basis, and it really seems like it's the primary foreign policy priority of the United States now to arm the Iranian regime with close to $1 trillion in sanctions relief and give them a glide path to a nuclear weapon, even though Israel's been very clear that this represents an existential threat to our national security and our existence. And so you have to ask the question of why would a Biden administration, following up on the previous Obama administration, make this their primary foreign policy priority? We're doing everything that we can to show readers and policymakers and influencers around the world that this is a bad deal.
Also, Jerusalem comes up quite a bit, the issue of Jerusalem, the status of Jerusalem. We know this current administration in America tried to open a consulate for the Palestinians against the wishes of the Israeli government. How much does Jerusalem play as a focal point in your reporting?
Well, Jerusalem's the focal point of the entire world, and certainly the focal point of all three monotheistic faiths, and it's the focal point of the state of Israel. It's our capital, and we have our headquarters here in Jerusalem, and we actually represent, I think, what are the forces that are coming out from Jerusalem and try to project those to the entire world. Obviously, forces that seek to harm Israel want to split Jerusalem, and they want to see sections of Jerusalem partitioned off for the creation of a Palestinian state. That would be shattering the heart of the Jewish people and the heart of all believers in God and faith around the world. And so we have to do everything that we can to maintain current U.S. policy, which is that Jerusalem is the united capital of the state of Israel and only the state of Israel.
Your website has a lot of news, but it also has commentary and opinion. How do you keep the balance between facts, what's happening, and also people's opinions and commentary in the news site?
Yeah, it's very important, and I think one of the clearest things that you need to do is properly label, what different types of content are. And our news is fact-based news, with the highest level sources, the highest level writing, highest level editing, and it also presents that there is another side to the story. I mean, we know that the state of Israel is not, it's not black and white. Every issue that comes up here has multiple shades of gray, and there's multiple points of view and different ways of looking at it. We present all those different ways of looking at it. Then we shift over towards analysis and opinion, and we consider our opinion to be informed opinion, informed analysis, where we give you the views of some of the most informed and best quality sources to tell you really how to digest the various issues and how to make your own informed opinions.
Well, the only news that I'm hearing these days in Israel is the election fever going on. We have elections next week. They say 5th time's the charm. What do you think?
Well, we have to see. Everything looks pretty tenuous right now. We had multiple election cycles where Benjamin Netanyahu and his right-wing coalition partners hovered just on the threshold of being able to form a government. Most of the polls today showing similar types of results. It could be that a few 100,000 votes in one direction or another could swing an election. It could be a few fringe parties, whether they make it in past the minimum threshold, will determine the outcome of the election. But there's a lot at stake, and I think that it's very important for Israelis to recognize what the stakes of this election are and to make sure that we have a strong government that's committed to Israel's national security, that's committed to free market economy, and committed to maintaining Israel's place as an emerging superpower in the Middle East.
How is it that in a country that has so many issues, from the existential threat of Iran to the economy to domestic issues, how did it get boiled down to, are you for Benjamin Netanyahu or against Benjamin Netanyahu?
Well, you see these same themes taking place in other countries around the world, including in the United States. It was either you're for Donald Trump or you're against Donald Trump. And somehow or another, they managed to throw Netanyahu into this same pool, even though Netanyahu has served Israel as prime minister for over 12 years and been one of the most successful prime ministers in Israel's history, raising us up from a developing nation into an emerging superpower, a strong defense, a strong economy, but still, they've managed to bring corruption cases against Netanyahu that probably wouldn't hold weight in an American court of law, but the media has jumped all over that, and they've been feeding the press the same type of anti-Netanyahu barrage that you've seen in other countries around the world.
Alex, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Well, as you know, that there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation about the state of Israel and the Jewish people circulating around the world, and the only way to truly support Israel is with good information, and we try to bring you that on a daily basis. So please do visit us at jns.org, visit Jewish News Syndicate, sign up for our email newsletter, and share our articles with your friends and family around the world.
Thank you, Alex, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Sam Grundwerg, World Chairman of Karen Hayesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. In the 1990s, we witnessed the biggest aliyah in Israel's history from the former Soviet Union. Once again, the Jews of Russia are streaming home to Israel. Help us bring them back to the Promised Land.
Since the beginning of the 20th century, supporters of Karen Hayesod spearheaded the efforts needed to establish the first independent Jewish state after 2,000 years of exile. For Jews across the world, Karen Hayesod helped forge a new age of hope, making the dream of 2 millennia come true. But at the same time, the Jews living in the former Soviet Union suffered immensely. Religious practice was suppressed, and Jewish national identity crushed. By the 1950s, under Stalin's cruel regime, countless persecuted Jews were executed or sent far away to the gulags. Russia's once thriving Jewish life was no more. But many refused to forget their heritage and God's covenant with the Jewish people. Secretly, they studied Hebrew and the Torah. They covertly practiced holiday celebrations. And above all, they dreamt of returning to the Jewish homeland, to Israel. Aware of the consequences, many still applied for exit visas. Viewed by the Soviet authorities as an act of treason, these brave individuals were dismissed from their jobs, harassed, and ostracized from society. By the 1970s, many leading Jewish activists had been sentenced to long periods in jail for fabricated offenses. But even suffering in the most appalling conditions, they continued to demand they be allowed to go free to Israel. Because of their refusal to give in, they became known globally as refuseniks. Their determination inspired a mass international solidarity movement. Jews across the world, including the supporters of Karen Hayesod and their Christian friends, held mass demonstrations and lobbied global leaders. In the words of the Bible, they demanded, "Let my people go." Refuseniks such as Natan Sharansky became household names. Alongside the likes of Yuli Edelstein, Ida Nudel, and other prisoners of Zion, they became international symbols of human rights and Jewish freedom.
Successful demonstration in those days of Jews who wanted to go to Israel was 5-10 people standing for 5 minutes in the center of Moscow Square with the slogans, "Let us go to Israel." The more people know about demonstration, the more chance that KGB, secret police, will know. Then there will be no demonstration. And the punishment can be up to 5 years of exile. But the idea was that if at least one foreign journalist knows about this, and he will come and he will inform, we are arrested. In the evening it is broadcasted all over the world about our arrest. Next day, hundreds of thousands of Jews all over the world go on their demonstrations, demand from their governments to act. And that's how we were organizing this struggle.
By the end of the 1980s, the pressure began to pay off. Sharansky became the first political prisoner released by Soviet Premier Gorbachev. Sharansky and his comrades were welcomed to Israel as heroes. bringing to life the prophecy of Zechariah, "I will return to Zion and dwell in Jerusalem." When Communist Russia collapsed in the early 1990s, over 1 million Jews followed these prisoners of Zion to Israel. With Keren Hayesod's help, they built flourishing lives in the home of their forefathers. Those who once languished in Russian jails became influential Israeli leaders. Sharansky served as a 4-time minister and deputy prime minister. After being imprisoned for 3 years in Siberia, Yuli Edelstein is now current Speaker of Israel's parliament. Ida Nudel remains a leading social activist and a powerful Israeli public voice. The legacy of the prisoners of Zion will truly continue to shine bright for many years to come. And yet, there's so much more work to be done to help bring more Jews from Russia back home to Israel. Keren Hayesod remains at the heart of this mission. Now is your chance to join us in supporting the next wave of Aliyah from Russia and be part of history in the making.
Let's bless Israel together.
Now's the time for you to get involved. Assist Keren Hayesod to raise the necessary funds in order to bring Jews yearning for their homeland back to Israel. Your donation can help fulfill the biblical prophecy today. To donate and get information, visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
The Israel Allies Foundation is one of the most important pro-Israel organizations in the United States and around the world. Thanks to the Israel Allies Foundation, its parliamentary caucuses, and our Christian friends and partners around the world, the bond between our faiths has never been stronger.
I just want to begin by saying thank you to the Israel Allies Foundation for bringing us together from near and far to say with one voice, America stands with Israel.
The Israel Allies Foundation is ensuring a better future for Israel, America, and the rest of the world.
Thank you all for being Israel's allies.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan Elron, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.